Alright, response video to the Modern Mystic, I believe. Yeah, he made 3 videos. I want to get back to that, and I've just been too busy to make a video. Sort of explaining the context of his beliefs, or the evolution of his beliefs, or understanding. Beliefs is a stupid way to put it. His current in perception, and he's talking about how it's still evolving. His understanding of the nuance of what we're doing in economic terms. Um, and he's sort of gone through this stuff before. He's given some context before of his work history and how he's lived his life, and how that sort of influenced his some of this argumentation, a philosophy of economics. And so I guess and we have a fundamental disagreement. I mean, it's really, if it wasn't an important one, then it'd be no big deal. But it's almost like this is the biggest picture of the biggest part, the most critical piece of the thing. It's like wheels on a car or something, or the motor. It's just a really important part. It's not a fender. It's not a tail light. It's a really fundamental part. And that we're not defining the same way. And so it's sort of in the philosophical realm of what life is. Um, he's got a way of turning suffering into something that's just a flow of the universing kind of stuff. Um, and yeah, I can't do that conversion. So for me, this is a fundamental critical flaw in a philosophy if it misses the main ingredient. This is the flour to the cake. It's just too important. And so here we are in the economics discussion, and I don't think you can. It's just so critical. So he basically has said quite clearly again um, that he just doesn't see any harm in the rich. He sees them as some sort of funny thing, some sort of cute. It's almost like they're cute. Like they're some sort of irrelevancy to the system. They're not a huge blight on it. They're not like smallpox. Okay, they're not a disease that just kills the whole structure of the economic system. No, they're just some little funny thing that's happening over there, and it just doesn't have. It's really not eating your food. It's like it's eating somebody else's food. It's not eating your food. So I guess that's where I'll argue from that point. Um, so for economic theory, for me, has always. I mean, I've had a different perception. I've always worked for rich people too, but not as rich as the ones he worked for, and not as personally maybe. Um, but yeah, but I've lived among them, for at least the second half of my life, and yeah, I just didn't have the same impression. I mean, I didn't see the same thing. I see the preposterous waste, um, the you know, mm, and the welfare of it, almost the disgusting, leechy, parasitical nature of it. And it's not comical or funny because I see the real fact that this waste implicates the world. I mean, you can't deny the implications of it. So I guess what I'm saying so if you took the economy as an overview, just kind of close your eyes and just say, let's look at it the biggest picture possible. What you have is amount of productive work done, like bridges built and houses built and roads built and cures for treatments for disease built, and you know work shit cleaned up in the hospital, and garbage pickups, and let's just go through all the jobs that have this quite obvious beneficial quality to them, that either give us products that make our lives better, or just as a practical matter make our lives more functional and better. And then you have this other part of the work that does all the bullshit stuff, like the guy spending his whole day trying to figure out what color to paint the can so it sells better. All the other wasted work, I would call it. Work that is done that doesn't have any value to me as a human, personally, and I would argue has no real social value. So, I mean, guys right now engineering a hack into the email system to send spam, all these kind of people. Lots of people out there working that are trying to engineer money out of your pocket, not as an exchange, but just to basically they're basically trying to figure out a way to steal it. Let's see if we can manipulate the way we describe the product, so we can sell more of them. We can deceive people into thinking it does more than it does. So we'll lie a little bit, just little white lies. It's all the people engineering those little white lies and little mechanisms to figure out how to, earn a living for not doing anything valuable. All right, so and that's the system. So that's the value created. So you have this. The kernel is this productive work. Around that is this crust of crap, of work that doesn't accomplish anything. Now, what percentages there are in the workforce, I would almost argue that it's 50-50. That 50% of the people have a good job that's productive, and 50% of the people in the workforce have a bullshit job, a waste of time, just a bureaucracy created for no good reason, because it's a shysterism. It's a game they're playing. The overselling, let's call it. So right there, you could argue that the people who are doing productive labor are having to work twice as many hours as necessary to live their lifestyle, because they basically have to feed, they have to supply the income to these parasite workers who aren't producing anything of value. The useless workers are extracting half the value of the economy and producing nothing. And I would argue they're extracting a lot more if we include the bankers and the owners and all the rest of these people that are getting the huge salaries. But let's not even get into them yet. So that's just the basic workers. So right there, people could work 20-hour weeks for the same exact lifestyle if you didn't have these parasite workers that are built onto the system. The workers not doing real jobs. The guys calling my telephone with some sort of sham deal. That kind of bullshit. Just the wasters. Wasted work. The socially unproductive work. How else can I put it? All right, so that's part of the argument. Now pile on this other crap onto the system. All right, so first, all right, look, just to satisfy the right wingers, you have these little poor people, these people living in cardboard boxes, living in Harlem, some other ghetto, ignorant, semi-retarded, too many kids, all that kind of crap, and they're sucking in, their $1,000 a month. They might be ripping the system off for, Uncle Suckering the system off for. So they're a blight too. They're another part of the system that these workers, these productive workers, have to feed. So that's another little cut, but I'm saying that's a tiny cut, 5% or something. They're not spending that much money. They're not building pyramids, so to speak, of opulence, the welfare recipients. Whatever money they receive, they put right back into the economy, usually into the very streams of value that we all want. They buy basic services you buy, a loaf of bread, all the rest of that crap. It makes your products cheaper because there's more people buying them. So, in theory, their expenditures are much more valuable because they're common expenditures. It's the uncommon expenditures where there's no value. The Lamborghini builder, okay, that doesn't have any value to your lifestyle. The guy's baking bread has value to your lifestyle because you're going to use bread. Okay, so now we get to this rich crust, the other welfare, the other people not working, realistically. They inherit money. There's maybe, I don't know, maybe Nick has the number. Maybe he can tell us how many thousands of people, millions maybe, are living off of legacy wealth, like the Walton fortune from Walmart. How many families are living off of that? Maybe 2,000? Maybe 5,000 people are living off that money. They don't do any work. They just own stuff. They travel around the world. They have their lawns manicured. They have $1 million birthday parties. So here's a whole bunch more labor that's only oriented toward serving their needs. So that's sort of what I'm arguing, that half of this labor force that's not doing productive work is doing this completely unproductive work of gold plating toilets. Nick even used that example, and he's not getting it. The only way that guy getting paid to gold plate that toilet can get paid is the value of other workers. They have to pay the price, essentially. The regular working guy doing productive work will have to work twice as many hours a week to pay for that other guy getting paid to gold plate a toilet. That wasted work will have to come out of his paycheck. We can only pay for anything in the world. Anything that's built in the world has to be paid out of labor. So it's almost like I'll go back to the Egyptian example again. I don't see why people can't understand this, but that's the example of wealth. We just don't see it. So look at Egypt. It wasted its resources, wasted the industry of its nation, wasted its productivity, building gigantic pointy things in the desert that had absolutely tombs for the kings, no value whatsoever. A huge amount of value, a huge amount of labor. Everybody could have just sat around on couches and smoked cigarettes all day. They had to do all this work, all right? Instead of building canals, instead of farming, instead of doing all the other industrious productive labor they could have been doing, they wasted hundreds of years of labor on nothing of value. Nothing useful to any citizen. Nothing that would feed somebody or house somebody or comfort somebody or make your civilization greater. Just a huge waste. And that's what the rich are doing in the world now. You just can't see it because their Lamborghinis aren't piled up in one place. Their marble floors, their manicured lawns, their $1,000,000 birthdays, all the wasted labor isn't made into some pyramids where you can just look at it and just marvel at the waste. So you don't see it, but it's in the air, it's out there, and it's hugely destructive. Like I said, I would argue that if we took this waste out of our economy, the average worker could work 1/3 of the hours he's working. 1/3. Or he could work the same number of hours and be 3 times wealthier, have 3 times the lifestyle he has now, if he didn't have to pay for this welfare for these lazy legacy rich people. I mean, it's just so fucking stupid. And, for Nick not to be able to get it, that this isn't free. Wasted labor isn't free. Stupid work isn't free. None of this is free. Just because you have a job does not mean you have a productive job, a socially useful job. And so because people keep making this argument, the rich employ people. Well, there's different kinds of employment. Working to plow a field in ancient Egypt, or to move commerce down the canal, and working on the pyramid would have been 2 kinds of work. One of them having huge social value, improving everybody's life. One having no value, improving no one's life. A complete waste of sweat, blood, and energy that had to be paid for by that productivity. There's only one pile of productivity being created, and it has to pay for everything. The pyramids, everything we do, every single bit of it has to be paid out of that productive worker's salary. And so that is what is so frustrating in terms of having this conversation with Nick, is that he doesn't understand the simple Marx principle, or whatever you want to call it. I mean, wherever it comes from, whoever was first to imagine the concept that work creates value, and that all the value is in what workers create. They have to make it valuable. Somebody has to expend energy, risk their life, do something to make the value, and that's and so when you squander that, I've done all this before, and how can people not get it? This piece of paper is value. It's made out of blood. It's made out of sweat. It's made out of risk. This buys somebody's life. This buys somebody's comfort. This has huge value. And to keep talking, fiat currency or some of the crap. No, that represents work and sacrifice and death and everything important in our lives. And when that's wasted, it's not funny. It's not trite. It's not. Let's come up with a word that he's the way he's looking at it. Benignly frivolous, entertaining, comforting. So again, part of his argument too is that it is somehow our basic human nature to applaud or appreciate this. and that like it's some sort of it's like a human thing that drives people to do that, and I don't get that. Sorry, I guess I never fell off that side of the bed, but yeah, no, I just sorry. It never occurred to me to applaud it or appreciate it or want it or see that as the way the world should be. I always just wanted a fair game. I never expected it to fall on me or to be granted it privilege for no merit. Um, I'm even embarrassed to sign a painting and stuff. I mean, I don't, it's just not my, maybe I'm just a little too, maybe I've been too humbled. Um, but I don't see any merit in um, unearned um, grace. Yeah. It's an abomination, in my opinion, a disgusting abomination. So, yeah, so that's a context, and that's it, that I'm just explaining why I'm sorry. I mean, it makes me want to throw up when he starts talking about these rich people like it's like something just I don't even know how to explain it. It's like calling it's like calling smallpox a raccoon. Okay, I mean, yeah, raccoons are a pain in the ass to this, that, but they're yeah, okay, they're kind of cute. They're ready to. Smallpox is not a raccoon. Not a very good comparison. But yeah, this is really horror, and he's trivializing the waste, and there's just nothing worse than waste. Waste is preposterously stupid, and it's just grotesque waste that we have an economic system that creates these loafers for no reason. They accomplish nothing. They have no value. They have no constructive purpose. They're just a blight on the system. It's just stupid.